Hey, I'm recording, buddy. I can't talk right now, okay? I'm talking to the camera. Buddy, I'm talking to the camera. I can't talk to you right now. Okay, buddy, I can't talk right now. Buddy, I can't talk right now, okay? I'll talk to you in a minute. What's going on, everybody? As most of y'all know, we are about to engage in a major lawn renovation. We lived in this house since April, and I've been talking about doing a renovation in this lawn since the day we moved in. We started a little bit on the back, got things pretty much leveled off, and started to plant perennial ryegrass. But because we started with irrigation so late in the season, by the time we got seed down, it was just too late, and it got hot, and it just couldn't survive. In the last couple of videos, we talked about what needs to be done to the lawn. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the how. So before we get started, one of the things that I want to emphasize is that the things that I'm going to show you today, the tools, the equipment, everything else, are things that I have accumulated over time. They're things that I'm going to be using during this lawn renovation. I am not by any means suggesting that you go out to Amazon or any other website and start buying equipment in order to match the things that I have. Most of the tools that are needed for a lawn renovation can be found in the average homeowner's garage. So keep that in mind. Use the tools you have, and if you want to buy certain tools and you feel like you're going to get usage out of it, then go for it. But for me, most of the tools that I have are things that I've accumulated over years, and I continue to use them year after year, especially as I do different types of renovations or different types of tests in my lawn. So with that, let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that my lawn is going to be replaced. I'm going to kill off all of the lawn first. And the reason why I'm doing that is because my front is fescue. I'm going to be changing it out to Kentucky bluegrass and perennial ryegrass. And the back is pretty much a mess right now with the leftover perennial ryegrass that I planted in the spring and a mixture of weeds. I thought about just going in there and planting new perennial ryegrass, but then I wouldn't be able to deal with the weeds, so I'm just going to kill everything off and start over. So when it comes to killing off your lawn, you have a couple of different options. First of all, you can kill off everything, or you can just kill off some of the weeds. If you're going to do just the weeds and you want to leave the lawn, you're going to use a selective herbicide. In that case, you could use something that is as simple as a Spectracide product or an ortho product. You can also use something like Tenacity or quinclorac, which I've done videos on in the past. But for the purposes of what I'm doing, I'm going to kill everything off. I'm actually going to use glyphosate. Glyphosate is something that you can go to Do My Own and order just a bottle of glyphosate. Or in my case, I just went to Home Depot and I got me some Roundup. The main ingredient in Roundup is glyphosate. This is a non-selective herbicide, and it is going to kill off everything. In my case, I have to be very careful because my neighbor, who is on the other side of my lawn, she doesn't want her lawn killed. So I want to make sure that I don't spray anything on her lawn. So I'm going to have to protect her lawn really carefully. On my other side is where my sister and brother-in-law live, and we're actually going to renovate the front of their lawn just like we're doing my lawn. So we're going to go ahead and kill everything off, and I don't have to be careful about where I spray this stuff. So once everything is all killed off, the first thing that I'm going to do on my lawn is I'm going to add a bunch of organic materials in the form of compost, and I'm also going to add a bunch of sand because I need to level things off. If you guys have watched any of my videos this year, you have noticed how bumpy it is for me to mow the front of the lawn. And I also want to start using my reel mower again in the front of the lawn when I get the Kentucky bluegrass and the perennial ryegrass up there. I want to start mowing my lawn low again with that reel mower. So in order to induce all of that material, we're going to have to put in a bunch of compost and a bunch of sand. We're going to use some tools for that. Number one, we're going to use my Gorilla Cart. Number two, we got to have a bunch of hand tools. So let me show you what we have. So my preferred hand tools are going to be these bad boys right here. So this is one of those areas where I don't think that you need to necessarily go out and spend a whole bunch of money to match the equipment that I have here. The only thing you really need is going to be some sort of a shovel and a rake. Preferably, you're going to use a metal rake like this and not one of these plastic rakes. Now, you're still going to use the plastic rake because you want to do some finish work with that, but you're going to need something that's a little bit more sturdy in order to move things around. In my case, I have two different things that will help move things and also level things. First of all, I've got this landscape rake because it's 36 inches and it's just a great product for you to move big chunks of dirt and compost and sand. And then the other one is my leveling rake. Now, this is something that I invested in a while ago when I was working in my other house and I had to level things off because I already had Bermuda. This is an area where if you want to spend the money and you think you'll use it year over year to actually add sand and do some leveling, then this is a really good investment, but you don't necessarily need it. You can go with either one of these. I just happen to have both of them. Now I do have a couple of different shovels. I do have a flat shovel and I have a rounded shovel just because they do different things. I can scrape with the flat shovel and I can actually dig into things a little bit easier with the pointed shovel. But those are the main things that I'm gonna be using. And like I said, you do want one of these rakes. You're just not gonna move a bunch of dirt around, but it is a good place to finish things off when you're just trying to, smooth things out at the end. So you're gonna use this in conjunction with this Gorilla Cart. And the reason why I have a Gorilla Cart is because I tend to like to move large quantities of dirt and compost. This is a 7 cubic foot Gorilla Cart. It is a dump cart, which means that I can put a lot of stuff in there, all 4 wheels stay on the ground, and I can actually lift and dump the dirt out of the back of the cart. With a wheelbarrow, it gets a little bit tiring. Your forearms get tired. You don't carry as much stuff. Especially if you have a hilly piece of land, it's just gonna make it very difficult for you to move a lot of dirt and a lot of sand, especially the sand because it gets pretty heavy. This is another area where you don't necessarily have to go out and spend a whole bunch of money. You can use a wheelbarrow or some other tool to move the dirt around if you want. If you're not worried about your land, you can back up your truck and just throw it out there if you wanted to. But I obviously have irrigation, so I worry about my sprinkler heads, I worry about the lines, and this is just a great way to move a bunch of dirt really quickly and get it all spread out. So once you get your compost laid out and flat, the next thing you're going to use is that roller. That roller fills up with water. It's really heavy. Again, another area you don't have to necessarily go out and spend money to buy. These are easily rented at Home Depot or Lowe's or some other rental store, and it's going to be about 30 bucks for 4 hours. It's not going to be much more than that for an entire day. I happen to have one because, as you guys know, I do a lot of dirt moving. I like to flatten things out, but this is going to be used a couple times during this renovation. So you're going to use this to actually flatten out all of the sand and all the compost before you put down the seed. Speaking of seed, this is what we're going to be using this year. We're going to be doing Kentucky bluegrass and perennial ryegrass. For my Kentucky bluegrass, I decided to go with Seed Superstore's blend of 3 different types of Kentucky bluegrass. This blend is Blue Bank, Midnight, and Mazama. Now the reason why I went with these is because, to be honest with you, I don't know that much about Kentucky bluegrass. So this year is an opportunity for me to teach myself a little bit. The research that I did seemed to indicate that these are going to be a little bit more tolerant to the heat, especially here in Nashville where we're in a transition zone and we tend to get really hot summers. The other one that I'm using is this Barrenbrug RPR, which is regenerative perennial ryegrass. The reason why I'm going with this is because it grows a lot like Kentucky bluegrass, which has rhizomes, and so it's going to have some of those self-healing properties, and I really want to give that a try. This grass, the perennial ryegrass, will go both in the front and in the back. The Kentucky bluegrass is only going to go in the front because I've just got too much shade in the back for me to even try it. So the way we're going to spread all this out is I'm going to use my drop spreader. Now you can use any kind of spreader you want. A lot of people like to use those hand cranks because you've got a little bit more control as to where you're putting the seed. And some other people will use a walk behind cast spreader, and that's fine too, but that tends to go in a lot of different directions and it's really hard to control. The reason why I like the drop spreader is because I know exactly where that grass is falling, and then I can actually do some overlaps as I go past everything. Now, keep in mind, you don't want to put down too much grass in one shot. And the reason why is because when it starts to clump together, they grow so tight that you're susceptible to disease and overgrowth. So you want to make sure you give everything a lot of room, but you want it tight, especially when you're doing a brand new seeding. Now, if you're doing an overseed, then just go ahead and use a regular cast spreader and you should be fine with that. Now, once I'm done with this, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the roller and I'm actually going to roll over all that seed that's going to be sitting on top of my compost and my sand. And the reason why we do that is because you want really good seed to soil contact, and there's nothing better than this to get it there. The next step we're going to do is we want to make sure that we put down some peat moss. Now this year I actually bought a brand new tool, which is this Landsea compost and peat moss spreader. Now it's a bit of an investment and I don't suggest that people go out and buy this, but I've seen lots of folks using it and it looks like a great product. So I went ahead and bought one because I tend to use a lot of peat moss when I'm doing new plantings. So I figured it was a good investment for me. So we're going to be putting down a nice coat of peat moss. And the reason why we're doing that is because when we start watering the lawn, we want to make sure that the seed stays wet all the way up until it germinates. The nice thing about peat moss when you're doing that is that it changes colors when it's wet versus when it's dry. So when it's wet, it's that deep dark brown. When it dries out, it's a lighter brown. So I know exactly when I need to add more water. When I start seeing that light brown, it's gotten too dry and I need to do something different and I need to add some water if I'm not getting rain. The second and last thing that we're going to do is fertilizer. Now, I've used Greene County fertilizers for many different types of applications, and this spring I actually used their seed and overseed starter pack, which is these 4 products right here. And I had some really good success, other than the fact that we planted too late and it got too hot for it. Now, these products were great, but I will tell you what, today I saw a video by Lawncology. John Perry did a great video. He's actually the CEO of Greene County Fertilizer who produces this, and he does a way better job of explaining how this thing works. So I'm actually gonna put a link to his video up here in the eye, so go check him out. But for the very first application, right after we put everything down, we are going to use RGS, which is the root growth stimulant. We're also going to use the 1621-2 Green Pop, which is a perfect starter fertilizer for when you just do a brand new seeding. We're going to apply that as soon as we put down seed, and then we'll go on to the next product at 21 days and then 42 days after that. So we'll talk about those when we get to it, but I just want to make sure that you understand you need to put down some sort of a starter fertilizer and the RGS, because that's really going to help with germination and the early root growth of the plant. Finally, when it's all said and done, you got to have water. So if you don't have an irrigation system, you can use your hand hose. You can go to Home Depot and get one of those fan hoses. You can buy a sprinkler head that you tie to a hose and just stick it in your lawn. There's a lot of different ways to get things wet. The best way to wet your lawn is rain, but if you don't, you're gonna have to supplement. The seed should stay wet at least through the initial germination, and then after that, you can start tapering off some of the water. Now, we don't want to drench things. We don't want things to be running off. If you've got so much water down that all the compost and sand and seed is running off, you've got too much water, but it should stay wet. One of the things that I saw that John Perry did on his lawn was he was putting down 5 minutes of water every 90 minutes. Now, the thing to keep in mind about John is that he lives in Utah, which is a very dry climate. You need to adjust that kind of water depending on where you live. We tend to be a little bit more humid, so we probably don't need to do that much water. But if you live in Florida where it's super humid and you're getting a lot of regular rain, you probably need to taper off some of the water that's there. So that's pretty much it. That's all I've got for you. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or if you have any comments or suggestions, please feel free to put those down in the comments down below. You can also email me at my email address that's in the description. I'm happy to respond to those emails as well. Those may take a little bit longer because I don't necessarily see them right away. But we've got a lot of work to do. This is going to be a really interesting project. Weather is always going to be a factor. We're hoping that we get good rain, but not too much rain. At least have an irrigation system, so that's going to really help with the supplementation of water. The first thing we're going to be doing is killing off the lawn, and we'll be doing that in the next video. I hope you guys stick around. Hope you guys watch this process. It should be really interesting, and I'm really hoping for some great results. So if you like this video, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe if I've earned your subscription, and if you want to be notified of future videos, don't forget to hit that bell, and we will see you on the next one. Have a great week, everybody.